Hello everyone! Today I'm going to convince you why prepping is a necessity. You don't have to be a tinfoil hat-wearing hermit to understand the imperative nature of being prepared. After all, the prepper industry has become a multi-billion-dollar industry. Can you predict an earthquake? Maybe you noticed how hostile the world has become in the last century. Most of the current youthful generations have no idea how to survive in the wilderness. They do not understand the fundamentals of hunting and foraging, or even how to maintain a garden. There's a lot to learn, sure, but this could be the key difference to surviving a horrible event or becoming another number in a statistic. What should you research? What should you do? What should you store? These questions I will happily address. Let's look at research first. If you are paying attention to Venezuela, you know there are riots and mass starvation from a corrupt government. Don't be naive to assume that this couldn't happen here. In reference to Alistar Tancred, those poor people have resorted to eating their household pets because they can't find food. Imagine if they all had gardens or storages of food. This is but a tiny example of why people need to research. If they had researched what grows best in their climate, Venezuelans could be fed. They could have a safe place for their families away from the violence. When you research something like Venezuela, you need to learn the hard lessons that the locals were too late to come to. It is imperative you know your strengths and your weaknesses. You might be excellent at carpentry, but terrible at sewing. You might be pretty good at medical practices such as setting a fracture or stitching a wound, but would suffer at combative situations. There's nothing wrong with having a weakness, but it is something you can work towards bettering yourself and increasing your ability to survive. There are basics that can help you no matter where you are. Some are intentionally plain, and some are a bit less obvious. Can you read a map or use a compass? In a scenario where these skills are required, there's a high chance you won't have access to a GPS system. Can you identify wild edible plants? Referencing Rebecca Mullany, a student of Ohio University, in my state of Ohio, we have a wild carrot called the Queen Anne's lace. This escaped parsnip, which looks like a wild carrot, grows in the same type of environment but produces an effect like poison ivy. You need to be able to distinguish food and poison apart. How much food do you have, and are you able to make your own preserves? Many preppers buy 40-pound containers of dry food, which isn't bad. But if they don't have a garden, how will they add to their reserves? I know, I keep touching on the gardens and food, but you have to remember that food is worth more than gold to someone starving. It would be the same for any of us. Look out to the Golden Coast. California is burning. The wildfires are so expansive and out of control that many people have lost their homes to the incessant flames. Have you wondered if those people were able to bring anything from their homes with them? Therefore, one of the most important things to research is a bug-out bag. I will refer to this bag as a bob from this point on. What is a bob? It is in most cases a 72-hour survival kit. Some of the more skilled preppers have advanced it for long-term application. Various preppers have written blogs on it, while others make videos on how to build one. So, what makes a good bob? Things like medical response kit, non-perishable food, batteries are a given. According to Mr. Bob on the Bug Out Bag Builder, you should get things like water purification and cutting tools. Lighters would be great too, unless you know how to build a fire with a bow drill. This site also points out that it is highly important to not overload yourself and burn more energy than you must. Do you have one for everyday use in case you are somewhere other than home when misfortune strikes? Or do you have a bag for when you may not return home? What you plan for is what you will be better able to respond to. Disaster strikes. A tornado has just ripped through your hometown. It left devastation in its wake. No power, no clean water, gas stations are closed, and emergency response teams are bogged down by the overwhelming demand for help. The United States Department of Labor has written an article on tornado preparedness and response. It warns of dangers after the tornado has already ripped through the area. If you can address the health hazard issues, you can make a much better judgment call on how to proceed. In times of panic, it can be difficult to think clearly. This happens to everyone. Even the most battle-hardened soldiers still can feel confusion in a firefight. You must mentally prepare yourself for the worst. Try and get through the worst. What could that possibly relate to? Easy. Treating yourself or others medically with your medical supplies from your BOB, having multiple routes to evacuate, and knowing of a few safe places to go. Your first goal should always be to find safety. Safety for those you love and care about is just as important. It makes it that much easier to focus on the task at hand when you know those that matter are safe. Let me touch on the medical side a little more. When you are providing any type of first aid response, know that unless you are a fully trained doctor, your primary goal should be to give the wounded a chance to survive. A very important skill to learn is treating shock. Shock is a condition where the body does not circulate enough blood. Medline Plus is a trusted health information website monitored by the government. It states as many as 1 in 5 people will die from shock. What about during the time of the crisis? Resources like ready.gov can give you an idea of what to do during extreme heat all the way to earthquakes. There are so many unpredictable elements to natural disasters and civil unrest that all you can do is rely on your research and self-preparation. This is why I mention research first. Knowledge is our greatest tool and our greatest weapon. Having the knowledge on what to do if a tornado is coming when you don't have a basement means you have a chance to survive. Let's say the threat is past. You can finally begin cleaning up the grounds around your home. Hunger will set in. Thirst will as well. What did you store? Do you have a full storage area of canned goods and bottles of water? Were you so unfortunate that you didn't have a pantry and everything edible was in your refrigerator? Don't worry. If you prepared for these type of events, you will never suffer the latter. Preppers will utilize all sorts of storable foods. Before you decide to go YouTube the one person who spent $20,000 on dehydrated goods, figure out what you need and would use first. The website happypreppers.com has a lot of great rules to help you out. For instance, they reference a food rotation system to make sure you use what is oldest first. They also recommend following Utah's recommended amount of storable water. A family of 4 like mine would require 360 gallons of water for 3 months. Looks like I need to start stocking up some more. Remember how I was talking about wild edibles and gardens earlier? Well, if you know how to can food, you would be able to add to your pantry continuously for a lot lighter of a cost. Foodandjars.com is an excellent site that will give you the basics for canning and has a few recipes to help you play around with the idea. The author Marissa McKellen also has some books that may shed some light on better recipes and things to consider when it comes to nutritional content. The good news is the cost of canning is moderately low. I know there's a bit of a social stigma that comes with being a prepper. People call you paranoid. Those same people are most likely to be the same ones who are helpless when everything falls apart. I also know that there are plenty of paranoid people in the prepper community. Some people are prepared for an alien invasion and or the mole men. It's their ideas on how they prepare that matter. One of the most common reasons a prepper gets ready is because of economic crisis. That doesn't sound too crazy, right? While I am not a full-fledged doomsday prepper, I am very mindful of the world around me. I am taking time to learn what I can, train for what I can, and making sure I am stocked for the worst. I am going gradually, and I've started a garden. I even have a small pantry going. I am keeping my eyes open for a good medical response kit, just in case. The best, most sound advice I can give about all of this is simply be aware. Thank you.